It began subtly, like a whisper in the dead of night. A glass inexplicably shattering in the kitchen, the faint, eerie chime of a wind-up toy playing in an empty room. At first, we dismissed it as the quirks of an old house settling, the mischievous pranks of a restless teenager. But as the weeks went by, the occurrences escalated, morphing into a relentless symphony of the inexplicable. Objects danced in defiance of gravity, skittering across countertops and levitating in midair. Disembodied voices echoed through the hallways, whispering taunts that chilled us to the bone. It was then, as the shadows deepened and the air grew thick with an oppressive dread, that we realized we were not alone. My daughter Tina, a once vivacious and carefree girl, became the epicenter of the paranormal storm that raged within our home. It was as if an unseen force had latched onto her, twisting her reality into a waking nightmare. She would awaken in the dead of night, her eyes wide with terror, recounting chilling encounters with unseen entities. As word of our ordeal spread, the media descended upon our once quiet neighborhood, their cameras capturing every unsettling detail. The scrutiny was relentless, their skepticism palpable. But we knew the truth, a truth that defied explanation. Paranormal investigators flocked to our home, their instruments humming and clicking as they sought to capture evidence of the unseen. Yet, their efforts proved futile, their rational explanations falling short in the face of the overwhelming evidence of the supernatural. Tina's torment intensified, her once vibrant spirit fading with each passing day. The poltergeist, emboldened by the media's attention, grew more aggressive, its attacks more sinister. The once comforting walls of our home transformed into a prison, each room a stage for its malevolent spectacle. One night, as the house creaked and groaned under the weight of the unseen, I found Tina huddled in her room, her body trembling, her eyes glazed with fear. A cold, oppressive presence permeated the air, a suffocating darkness that seemed to seep from the very walls. In that moment, I knew we were fighting a losing battle. The poltergeist had claimed Tina, its grip tightening with each passing moment. And as I looked into my daughter's vacant eyes, a chilling realization dawned upon me. The haunting was not merely a paranormal phenomenon, a random act of supernatural aggression. It was something far more sinister, a darkness that had taken root in the depths of Tina's soul. And as the truth unraveled, a bone-chilling question echoed through the haunted corridors of our home. Was Tina the victim, or was she the source of the evil that plagued us? As the paranormal investigators delved deeper into the haunting, their focus shifted from the house to Tina herself. They observed her every move, their eyes searching for any sign of deception, any indication that she was orchestrating the terrifying events that unfolded around us. Tina, once a bubbly and outgoing teenager, retreated further into herself, her silence a stark contrast to the chaos that reigned within our home. She became a ghost in her own life, her eyes haunted by a darkness that seemed to grow with each passing day. One evening, as the investigators huddled in the living room, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of the television, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. We rushed to Tina's room, our hearts pounding in our chests. The scene that greeted us was one of pure horror. Tina lay on the floor, her body contorted in an unnatural position, her eyes wide with terror. A deep crimson gash marred her forehead and blood seeped from her lips. The investigators exchanged uneasy glances, their skepticism replaced by a dawning realization. Tina was not faking it. She was not the perpetrator of the haunting, she was its victim. As Tina was rushed to the hospital, a sense of helplessness washed over me. I watched as the paramedics carried her away, her limp body a stark reminder of the evil that had invaded our lives. In the days that followed, the haunting intensified. Objects flew across rooms with alarming force, windows shattered without explanation, and disembodied voices filled the air with their chilling whispers. It was as if the poltergeist, enraged by Tina's absence, was unleashing its full fury upon our home. One night, as I lay awake in bed, unable to shake the image of Tina's broken body, I heard a soft scratching sound coming from the attic. My heart pounded in my chest as I crept up the stairs, my hand trembling as I reached for the attic door. As I pushed open the door, a cold gust of wind swept past me, carrying with it the stench of decay. The attic was shrouded in darkness, but I could make out the faint outline of a figure huddled in the corner. "Tina?" I whispered, my voice barely audible above the pounding of my heart. The figure turned slowly, its face illuminated by the moonlight streaming through the window. It was Tina, but her eyes were vacant, her skin pale and drawn. A sinister grin spread across her lips, revealing a row of jagged teeth. "Mommy," she hissed, her voice a guttural growl. "I'm home." I stumbled backward, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. The Tina standing before me was not my daughter. She was something else, something evil, something that had crawled from the depths of the darkness to claim her soul. A scream tore from my throat, echoing through the haunted attic. The monstrous figure that wore my daughter's face lunged towards me, its claws outstretched. I stumbled backward, my heart thundering in my chest. The attic floor seemed to tilt and sway beneath my feet, the darkness closing in, threatening to swallow me whole. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, I slammed the attic door shut, the sound reverberating through the silent house. I leaned against the door, gasping for breath, my body trembling uncontrollably. The scratching resumed, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down my spine. I knew I couldn't stay in the house a moment longer. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed the police. My voice was barely a whisper as I explained the situation, my words punctuated by panicked sobs. Within minutes, the house was surrounded by flashing lights and sirens. The police cautiously entered the house, their weapons drawn. I watched from the safety of a neighbor's porch as they searched every room, their faces grim and determined. Finally, they emerged from the house, shaking their heads. The attic was empty. There was no sign of Tina, no trace of the monstrous entity that had confronted me. The police escorted me back into the house, their eyes scanning every shadow, every corner. The air hung heavy with an oppressive silence, broken only by the creaking of the old floorboards. I felt a chill creep down my spine, a sense of dread settling in the pit of my stomach. I knew Tina was still out there, somewhere in the darkness. The poltergeist had not been defeated, it had simply retreated, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. In the days that followed, I was consumed by fear. I barely slept, my dreams haunted by the image of Tina's twisted face. I jumped at every creak and groan of the house, my nerves frayed and on edge. The media frenzy surrounding the haunting had died down, replaced by a morbid curiosity. People whispered about the possessed girl and the house of horrors, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and fascination. I tried to resume some semblance of normalcy, but it was impossible. The house was a constant reminder of the terror that had unfolded within its walls. I felt trapped, suffocated by the memories that clung to every room, every object. One evening, as I sat alone in the living room, staring blankly at the television, I heard a soft knock at the front door. My heart skipped a beat as I cautiously approached the door, peering through the peephole. Standing on the porch was a young woman, her face obscured by the shadows. She wore a long, flowing white dress that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Her eyes, when they met mine, were filled with an unsettling intensity. "Hello, Mother," she said, her voice a chilling echo of Tina's. "I've come home." A wave of icy terror washed over me. The figure on the porch was undoubtedly Tina, but her presence radiated an otherworldly aura, a chilling dissonance that made my skin crawl. Her once warm, inviting eyes now burned with an eerie luminescence, and her smile was a grotesque parody of the joyful expression I once knew. "Tina?" I stammered, my voice trembling. "Is it really you?" "Of course, Mother," she replied, her voice a melodious yet unsettling symphony. "Who else would it be?" I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. A part of me yearned to embrace my daughter, to welcome her back into the fold. But another part, a primal instinct honed by the horrors I had witnessed, screamed at me to keep the door firmly shut. "Tina, you've been gone," I managed to say, my words catching in my throat. "The police, they couldn't find you." "They were looking in the wrong places," she said with a cryptic smile. "I've been here all along, Mother, watching, waiting." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. The implication was clear. The entity that had masqueraded as Tina in the attic was not a separate being, but a manifestation of Tina herself, a dark reflection of her tormented soul. "Tina, please," I pleaded, my voice thick with desperation. "Let me help you. Let me get you the help you need." "Help?" she scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "I don't need help, Mother. I am the help. I am the one who will set you free." Her words hung in the air, heavy with ominous intent. I took a step back, my hand instinctively reaching for the phone on the nearby table. But before I could dial for help, the front door swung open with a deafening crash. Tina glided into the house, her movements fluid and graceful, yet unnervingly unnatural. The air crackled with an unseen energy, the temperature plummeting as she advanced towards me. "It's time, Mother," she whispered, her eyes glowing with an unholy light. "Time for you to join me in the darkness." I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. Panic surged through me, my mind racing for an escape. But there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Tina was upon me, her touch sending a jolt of icy coldness through my veins. As her fingers wrapped around my throat, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in her eyes. It was a vision of abject terror, a face contorted in a silent scream. And then everything went black. I awoke to a suffocating darkness, my senses reeling. My body felt leaden, my limbs unresponsive. A cold dampness clung to my skin, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I realized I was lying on the cold, earthen floor of the basement. The only light came from a single flickering bulb that cast long, eerie shadows across the room. I tried to move, but my body refused to obey. I was paralyzed, trapped in a waking nightmare. Panic gnawed at the edges of my consciousness, threatening to consume me whole. Then I heard it, a soft shuffling sound like footsteps dragging across the floor. The sound grew louder, closer, until it seemed to be right beside me. I squeezed my eyes shut, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to see what was coming. I didn't want to face the horror that awaited me in the darkness. A cold hand brushed against my cheek, sending a shiver down my spine. I opened my eyes, my gaze locking with Tina's. But it wasn't the Tina I knew, the Tina I loved. Her eyes were vacant, her skin pale and translucent. Her lips were pulled back in a grotesque grin, revealing a row of sharpened teeth. "Welcome home, Mother," she whispered, her voice a chilling echo from the grave. "We've been waiting for you." I struggled to speak, but no words came out. My throat was constricted, my tongue heavy and numb. I could only stare in horror as Tina's grin widened, her eyes burning with an unholy light. She leaned closer, her breath hot against my face. "You see, Mother," she hissed, "death is not the end. It's just the beginning." With a sudden burst of strength, Tina's grip tightened around my neck. I gasped for air, my vision blurring. The darkness pressed in on me, threatening to engulf me completely. And then I heard a voice. A familiar voice calling my name from the depths of the abyss. "Mom! Mom, wake up!" I opened my eyes, blinking against the harsh light. I was back in the living room, lying on the couch. Tina was kneeling beside me, her face etched with worry. "Mom, are you okay? You were screaming in your sleep." I sat up, my heart still racing. I looked around the room, my gaze lingering on the front door. It was closed, locked. There was no sign of the ghostly figure that had haunted my dreams. "It was just a nightmare," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. Tina squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure, Mom? You seem really shaken up." I nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, honey, just a bad dream." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The nightmare had felt too real, too visceral. It was a warning, a glimpse into the darkness that still lurked within the walls of our home. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the haunting was far from over. The days that followed were a blur of unease and apprehension. The nightmare clung to me like a shroud, its chilling imagery replaying in my mind's eye. I couldn't shake the feeling that Tina was not entirely herself, that something sinister still lingered beneath the surface. Her behavior grew increasingly erratic. She would spend hours locked in her room, emerging only for meals, her eyes vacant and distant. She barely spoke, and when she did, her words were cryptic and unsettling. One evening, I found her sitting in the living room, staring intently at the fireplace. The flames danced and flickered, casting an eerie glow across her face. "Tina, honey," I said softly, approaching her cautiously. "Are you all right?" She turned to me, her eyes wide and unblinking. "The fire," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling of the flames. "It speaks to me." I felt a chill creep down my spine. "What does it say, Tina?" She tilted her head as if listening intently. "It says that we are not alone. It says that they are coming." Her words sent a wave of panic through me. "Who's coming, Tina?" She smiled, a chilling, mirthless smile that sent shivers down my spine. "The ones who dwell in the darkness, the ones who hunger for our souls." I reached out to touch her, but she recoiled, her eyes blazing with an unnatural intensity. "Don't touch me, Mother," she hissed. "You don't understand. You can't stop them." I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The Tina standing before me was not my daughter. She was a vessel, a conduit for the malevolent forces that had invaded our home. I fled the living room, my mind reeling. I barricaded myself in my bedroom, my hands trembling as I fumbled with the lock. I could hear Tina's footsteps pacing outside the door, her whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Let me in, Mother," she pleaded, her voice a chilling blend of innocence and malice. "Let me show you the truth." I pressed my back against the door, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I knew I couldn't hold out forever. Tina was growing stronger, her power fueled by the darkness that consumed her. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. I screamed, my voice echoing through the silent house. The door rattled violently, the lock straining under the onslaught. I braced myself, my heart thundering in my chest. I knew the moment of truth had arrived. The battle for my soul was about to begin. The door splintered, the wood cracking under the relentless assault. A sliver of moonlight illuminated Tina's silhouette as she pushed her way into the room, her eyes burning with an eerie luminescence. "There's nowhere to hide, Mother," she hissed, her voice a guttural growl. "Embrace the darkness, it's the only way." I scrambled backward, my hands searching for a weapon, anything to defend myself. But the room was bare, stripped of any potential defense. I was cornered, trapped like a rat in a cage. Tina advanced, her movements slow and deliberate, savoring the moment. Her grin widened, revealing a row of sharpened teeth. The air crackled with an unseen energy, the temperature plummeting as she closed the distance between us. "You can't fight it, Mother," she whispered, her voice a seductive caress. "Surrender to the power. Become one with us." I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. "Tina, please," I begged, my voice choked with sobs. "This isn't you. Fight it. Fight for your soul." Her laughter echoed through the room, a chilling, hollow sound that pierced the silence like a knife. "My soul is gone, Mother," she said, her voice dripping with malice. "It belongs to the darkness now." She lunged, her claws outstretched. I closed my eyes, bracing for the inevitable, but instead of pain, I felt a surge of warmth, a comforting embrace that enveloped my entire being. I opened my eyes, my vision blurred by tears. Standing before me was a figure bathed in golden light. His face was kind and compassionate, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. "Tina," he said softly, his voice a soothing balm to my ravaged soul. "It's not too late. Let go of the darkness. Let me help you." Tina snarled, her body contorting in agony. The darkness fought back, its grip tightening around her. But the figure in the light stood firm, his presence a beacon of hope in the encroaching shadows. "Choose, Tina," he urged, his voice resonating with power. "Choose love. Choose light." Tina's body trembled, her eyes flickering between the darkness and the light. A war raged within her, a battle for her very essence. And then, with a guttural cry, she collapsed to the floor, her body racked with convulsions. The darkness swirled around her, its tendrils reaching out, grasping for her soul. The figure in the light knelt beside her, his hand outstretched. "Tina," he whispered, his voice filled with love and compassion. "Come back to us." Tina's eyes fluttered open, her gaze locking with his. A single tear rolled down her cheek, a tear of redemption, of hope. And then the darkness was gone. The oppressive darkness that had once clung to Tina like a shroud dissipated, replaced by a soft, ethereal glow. Her eyes, once vacant and haunted, now sparkled with a newfound clarity. A gentle smile graced her lips, a smile that reached her eyes and warmed my heart. The figure in the light, his mission complete, turned to me. "She's free," he said, his voice filled with a quiet joy. "The darkness has been banished." I rushed to Tina's side, embracing her tightly. Her body felt warm and solid, no longer the chilling conduit of malevolence it had become. Tears of relief streamed down my face as I held her close, whispering words of love and gratitude. In the days that followed, a sense of peace settled over our home. The oppressive atmosphere that had once permeated every room lifted, replaced by a lightness and serenity that we had long forgotten. Tina, once withdrawn and distant, blossomed back into the vibrant, joyful girl she had been before the haunting. She spoke openly about her ordeal, sharing the horrors she had endured and the lessons she had learned. The media, once eager to exploit our tragedy, now celebrated Tina's triumph over darkness. She became a symbol of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The paranormal investigators, humbled by the events they had witnessed, packed up their equipment and left, their skepticism replaced by a newfound respect for the mysteries of the universe. As for the figure in the light, he vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared. But his presence lingered, a comforting warmth that filled our hearts and reminded us that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of redemption. The Haunting of Tina Resch became a legend, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones. But for us, it was a story of resilience and love, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable darkness, the light will always find a way. And as I watched Tina laugh and play, her spirit once again filled with the joy of life, I knew that we had truly been blessed. The haunting had tested us, pushed us to the brink of despair, but it had also brought us closer, strengthened our bond, and ultimately set us free. The darkness had been vanquished, and in its place, a radiant light shone brightly, illuminating our path towards a future filled with hope and healing.